News Talk 550 KFYI, and we're talking about this today. It is an event called Facebook Envy. So today's show says this. They go, okay, have you ever scrolled through an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend's photos or wistfully liked a coworker's beautiful vacation snapshots? Because that kind of envious behavior on Facebook can lead to depression, according to a study published in the Journal of Computers and Human Behavior. I didn't even know there were computers and human behavior. So that takes me by surprise. All right, so joining us to talk about the Facebook envy now, we actually got Lori Vann on. Lori is a licensed professional counselor. And Lori, thanks so much for making time for us today. The topic of the Facebook envy, and I know that today's show did something on this, and other people are talking about Facebook envy. Can you explain to me exactly what Facebook envy is and how this somehow leads to depression?
Well, basically, people are using Facebook or other social media sites in an inappropriate manner, and they're using it as a comparison. So they look at someone else's post and they go, wow, I'm not doing that. I don't have the great relationship. I'm not going on the great vacation. I must be doing something wrong. There's something wrong with me, and it leads to depression, low self-esteem, and perhaps even anxiety.
Is this something that Facebook is exacerbating? Don't we always compare ourselves to our peers?
Well, I don't know if you can really blame the site. I think you have to really look at the person themselves. And I think for anyone, the first question you need to ask yourself before you get any social media account is, why do I have this? What am I trying to get out of it? What is the purpose behind it? And there are plenty of people that use their accounts appropriately. It's to keep in contact with people, give them updates. And if someone is doing great stuff, you rejoice with them and you give them the high five.
Right.
But unfortunately, some people are real insecure, and their self-esteem comes from extrinsic things. So when they see everyone else doing really neat stuff or seeming like they're so successful, then they feel that, oh, I'm lacking, and obviously that's a problem. Sure.
Is it, but some people like to share everything on Facebook, right? I mean, triumphs, defeats, they share everything. But many of us always try to put our best foot forward, don't we? So is it even fair for someone that maybe has esteem problems to look at a peer and say, oh, look how well they're doing, when in fact that peer is not, they're not posting things about the argument they just had with their spouse, they're posting about their vacation to Cabo instead?
It's an absolutely valid point, because we do try to put our best foot forward. And we realize, at least some of us realize, that anything we put out there is subject for the entire world to see. So why would we want to put our dirty laundry out there? Now, there are some people that do, and maybe they have their own motives for that. But we do tend to put forward all the good stuff, all the positive things, because we don't want to feel judged. And if we're actually real, then there's that risk factor. We're being vulnerable, and people may or may not respond in a way that we hope that they would.
Lori Vann is a licensed professional counselor talking about Facebook envy and how that can lead some people to depression. Why is it that people don't rejoice? You talked about self-esteem earlier, but isn't one way to build self-esteem to find joy in other people's successes?
Well, I think it helps show the person's maturity, at least emotional maturity, where you can say, you know what, I'm so excited for my friend because I know they've worked really hard to get that degree. Or, you know, they've come out of a bad divorce and now it seems like they found someone that treats them well. And I'm so happy for them. And maybe that gives me hope that I can have that too. So that perspective of saying, instead of I'm going to be jealous and wish bad stuff and make their life miserable, it's more of a, hey, you know, if this can happen for them, then why can't this happen for me too? And maybe switch it to being a motivational factor versus a negative thing.
How do we overcome it? Because I understand that jealousy is natural. For instance, if I'm working with someone and we're coworkers and we're friends and we consider ourselves equal, and suddenly they get a great promotion or they get a job offer from somewhere else, I'm naturally jealous, and I naturally think, why not me? Is this the battle of the ego and the id? Is that what's going on?
Yes, to go Freudian, it's a little bit of that, yeah, because obviously there's the part of us that is just that seedy or that deeper part of human nature that we don't really like to admit to. That is the jealousy part, the envious part, well, I want it for me side of it, and then there's the higher functioning that goes, you know what, that's something you can work for, but don't take it away from someone else. And that gets into a whole ethics and morals type debate. But I think that if someone is having their self-esteem based on performance or income or relationships or power or what have you, all these superficial external things, then that's when they might want to speak with a professional to get into the, okay, I need to learn to be happy with me. I have to make sure that self-esteem is coming from within me and things that are more stable, more consistent versus stuff that frankly is fleeting, because jobs come and go, and so do vacations and even relationships.
Lori Vann, licensed professional counselor, with us today. And Lori, in following with the things that you just talked about, is it so wrong though to feel validation from our successes? I guess I'm torn, because I've always strived to be as successful as I can. I've strived to have that next great paycheck. I've strived to have that next, for me in radio, it's always to have that one larger market on my resume. It's something that's driven me, and I feel validated in my efforts when I achieve those things. So how does, I guess, Lori, what's wrong with me is the question. And I don't know if you have enough time. This is
wrong.
Right. This is going to be when you say, "Well, our time's up. We'll talk to you next week." Right? Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think that's also part of our human nature, is that we should strive to improve ourselves. And everyone has different goals and different things that they want to strive for. And some people are very ambitious and they're very self-motivated, and great, as long as it's not to the detriment of their health or to relationships. And others may not be as highly motivated. Some people are very content with a simple lifestyle, and good for them. But everyone should rejoice that if they put effort into something, they worked at it, and then they reap the rewards of it, why not feel some happiness about that? Why not give yourself the pat on the back? Because that's where sometimes perfectionism comes into play, where perfectionists have difficulty accepting the accolades. They have difficulty saying that, yeah, I did do a good job, because they're always going, well, but it could always be so much better. And that's where there's always balance in everything. But it's fine to be happy that you got that promotion and go, okay, well, this is good, and I'm going to sit with this for a bit, and here's my next goal beyond that. But you still give yourself the credit for what you've accomplished.
Lori Vann is a licensed professional counselor. Executive producer is Abrielle. Ab, jump in on this.
Yeah, so Lori, what's the best way that we can go about fixing this then? Because we're in a generation where social media is so prevalent.
Well, I think that if we're working with younger people, such as teens or even tweens, that we have to make sure we're role modeling what healthy self-esteem is and where it needs to come from. And that's one of the things I do in the support groups that I lead for teenagers, is that let's focus on the character traits. Let's remember those core things that really should be defining us, such as, are we trustworthy? Are we respectful? Are we kind? Are we a good friend? Because that's the stable stuff. And not get so focused on what a lot of the media drives of, it's all about how many likes you have, or how many, this, that, and the other, new purse or what have you. And some of that gets into the parents monitoring what their kids are doing on social media, and if they're even mature enough to be on social media. For adults, I think we have to step back and maybe detach a little bit from technology, because if that's what's driving our emotions or the opinions that we have of ourselves, then that's always going to be changing. And that means that our self-esteem is always going to be changing and is being manipulated by others.
Lori Vann is our guest, and Lori, I'm on the website now. It's LoriVannCounseling.com, LoriVannCounseling.com. You can also find her book, Caregiver's Guide to Self-Injury, which is obviously something that, not exactly what we're talking about today, but certainly something that is a major issue, especially when parents start noticing things like that happening with their kids. Lori, thank you so much for your time. I sincerely appreciate this, and I like that this comes back to parenting and setting that great example early on, because, how important is that? And everything you do, you talk about, when you're counseling, everything comes back to the parenting, the experience with the parents, and some of that, some of what went on during one's development. Am I right on that?
It's a significant factor, and if, say, someone didn't have the best parents, it doesn't mean that they're a lost cause. And
yeah.
I have
Can hang on? I need you to say that again to my children. Will you just tell my children that it doesn't mean that they're a lost cause? Just because they had me as a crappy father, it doesn't mean that it's a lost cause, because that's the truth.
It's true, and it doesn't advocate responsibility for that person to correct whatever mistakes they think that were made.
Okay.
That, you know what? That's what counseling is for, is to help undo some of that damage.
That's right. So, kids, as long as Daddy's got a good job, he can pay for your counseling to undo the damage he did while he was trying to get that good job. All right. Lori, thank you so much. I appreciate it. LoriVannCounseling.com. And Lori, you're an absolute gem. I love having you on the program. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
All right. Best to you. Once again, LoriVannCounseling.com. And appreciate Lori's time here on News Talk 550 KFYI.